What's up guys? Welcome back to the Piston Show. I'm Kashi Dylan and today I'm driving the Jetour Dashing. Now I first drove this car back in April of this year, April of 2025, and I had my opinions. I had my opinion about the throttle, I had an opinion about the software, I had some colourful opinions. But back then I also said that I'm really looking forward to spending some quality time with the Dashing to get to know it better, because back then I only drove it for a day to Sekinchan and it was more of a first impression drive. And now though, I got the car for a bit longer, I don't have to share the car with anybody else, so I can dive deeper into the details of this car. So, a couple of things just off the bat. The accelerator pedal still feels a little bit iffy. There's a little bit of a lag between the point where you put your foot down and when the engine actually delivers its power, so there's a bit of a lag over there, and that can be a little bit annoying. Of course, there are different driving modes, but you either have to swipe the screen down to access it, or you have to jump into the vehicle settings, which is not exactly something that you want to do, particularly when you're driving, because the last thing you want is to be distracted from the road. But hey, that's just how things are for the Jetour Dashing. But then again, there are other things about this car that are really good, such as the spaciousness of the inside, as well as the design of the car, because there's little to no doubt that it is quite a handsome design. It does turn heads. Before we get into the details of the Dashing though, I just would like to sort of rewind towards the Jetour brand itself. Okay, I understand that now it's commonplace for us to be introduced to brands that we have never heard before. Back when I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s and mid 2000s, 2010s and such, brands were very straightforward. It was either the Europeans, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Audi and such, or they were Japanese, Nissan, Toyota, Honda and such, or Mitsubishi and all, or they're American, Ford, Chevrolet and such. Of course, the earlier generation were actually dealt with the introduction of the Japanese cars into the market. So our friends like Chips Yap and YS Kong and such, they will have a different opinion because they were there when the Japanese cars were first being introduced. So they kind of knew how it felt. What we are feeling now with the Chinese cars, they felt back then when the Japanese cars were first being introduced to the Malaysian market. So for them, it's nothing new lah. It's another wave of new car brands. For us though, it's just, what is that? Have you heard of this car brand? No. Can we trust it? I don't know. But can you trust it? Let's find out. I mean, ultimately time will tell how Jetour does in the car market, right? But from the offset, Jetour is not exactly new to the car market. They've been at it since about 2016, 2017 or 2018 thereabouts, and they've sold some really impressive number of cars, somewhere in the millions if I'm not mistaken, and they're all around the world. So just because they're new to Malaysia doesn't mean that they're new to the world. But from what I'm feeling from this car, well, they still have a lot to learn. And the good thing about Jetour is, and not only Jetour but a lot of other Chinese car makers, is that they are willing to learn. So earlier when I picked up this car, it was not only the PR exec or the marketing exec that passed me the car, it was also the product guy that actually came downstairs and handed me the car and spoke to me about the car, got my feedback from the earlier drive and such. So that's quite impressive. That just means that they have an ear to the ground, and I like that. I appreciate that. So how does it feel like? I'll get to that shortly, but for now, let's go take a walk around the car and poke and prod it, talk about a little bit about the interior and such, and then we can talk about how the car feels. So there's little doubt that the Jetour Dashing is a good-looking car from the exterior. I mean, this is a car that when you first look at it, it makes you go, wow, what is that? And then you realize it's a Jetour Dashing and you're like, it makes you curious to know more about the car. So to me, it has a little bit of Lotus-esque touches, particularly the slim headlights. The headlight cluster, the main headlight cluster is at the bottom over here. You get a large gaping grille. This green, I think sort of a emerald / British racing green, looks really good on the dashing. I think Jetour has selected a good color. And on top of that, I think the real highlight over here for the Jetour Dashing is the side profile of the car. And look at this line over here. I think it's a very cleverly hidden line. It sort of starts over here and then it disappears here. And there's another line that this is what you call a shoulder line, and this makes it seem like a longer car. But from the side over here, it just makes it seem very flat. Obviously it's not, but it's a very unique design that actually looks kind of good. Underneath here is a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine making 156 PS and somewhere about 250-ish Newton meters of torque. Power sent to the front wheels via a 6-speed dual clutch transmission. This is the Prime version, which means this is the flagship variant, so it runs on 19-inch wheels. And the other thing that I really like about the design of the Jetour Dashing is the really dramatically inclined A-pillar over here. Look at how aggressively it just comes up dramatically and then it just sort of tapers off over there. But then it is this line that I like. See how it just merges over here? I think that's quite unique. I really like that. And on top of that, you get some flush door handle to push it this way to open. And even when you close the door, it feels nice, sounds nice. I will tell you that it sounds better than the newer generation BMWs. So on moving towards the back of the car, I've already pointed this out. Check out this crisscrossing over here. The chrome really adds to the premiumness of the car. Okay, at the back over here, I think this continues the dramatic design of the car. I think it looks really good. I like the details in the brake lights. This looks really good. This checkered flag sort of design over here, that looks good. Moving on from the brake lights, this are your third brake lights up here, and this is a sensor located in the center over there. I know that is not the camera because the camera is placed right underneath over here. Now, on top of that, I'd just like to bring your attention to the lower part of the bumper. It looks very aggressive. And I think the designers of Jetour sort of got the inspiration from diffusers that you sometimes find with sports cars and supercars and such, particularly this angle over here. I don't think this is a functional diffuser, but it definitely adds a touch of aggression to the Jetour Dashing. Now, in terms of boot space, you get a functional boot space. It's quite large, actually measuring in just under 500 liters. You also get a tonneau cover, and this is good enough space for your family and such. And I like the spaciousness of the car. I'll get to that shortly. And on top of that, you don't get a spare wheel, or do you? Because the spare wheel is located underneath here. This is what you call a space saver wheel. So it's not a full-size spare wheel, but it's still better to have this than no spare wheel at all. It's at least it won't leave you stranded. Now we go inside. Joe. Every time you get into the car and you want to start it, there's a welcome jingle of sorts that welcomes you into the car. Okay, it's a nice touch lah, not a big problem. I would turn it off. Anyway, this is the key to the Jetour Dashing. It's quite large, and not a big fan of large keys because I don't like having a lot of stuff in my pocket. Anyway, the interior of the Jetour Dashing. Honestly, at first glance, I like it. There's nothing to fault about the interior. The quality is decent, space is good, you have all the tech that you need, it's comfortable as well. Now, as far as your needs go, the Jetour Dashing checks all of it. And this is a car that costs just under 120,000 ringgit. So it's difficult to fault this, because every time I want to think of something that I want to mention or want to fault, I think about the price. Because at just under 120,000 ringgit, I think this is a very good deal. Okay, but if I were to nitpick, making it hard to nitpick as well, but anyway, this red line over here, it's a hit or miss. For me, I don't mind it. The red stitching on the seats, well, that's a nice touch. There used to be a time when red stitching was usually reserved for sports cars and hot hatches and such, but nowadays you find it in affordable SUVs as well, no big deal. And moving on over here, you get a charge pad, storage, cubby holes, your gear lever. This is sort of the Jetour version of an iDrive. It lets you control almost all of the menus in there. And I would just like to bring your attention back to the seat. It's a very good looking seat, there's no doubt. It's very sporty looking seat, and it's adjustable electronically for the driver and for the passenger as well. So keep in mind that this is a car that costs just under 120,000 ringgit. So the fact that you have dual electronic seats at the front, not bad. And then I want to nitpick on this sort of silver satin finish over here. Okay, you see there is this reflection that is sort of blinding me because of the way that the sun is positioned right now in our hot Malaysian sun, right? So that's why it requires wearing shades, because that can sort of reflect and blind you for a couple of seconds. So make of that what you will. Your air conditioning controls are all located over here, and this is all like a touchpad controls over there, so better than having them all located in here. Now, since I've got your attention over here, this looks like it came off a Cherry Omoda, and not a bad thing. It does sort of jive with the overall design of the car. Software is could be better. It's not very friendly. You'll find some grammar errors in there as well, so that sort of picks on my OCD a little bit. But there are a couple of things that I wish could be better, such as the selecting drive modes. Now, if I wanted to select my drive mode, I have to swipe the screen down, and I have to select drive modes, but these two tiny buttons over here. This is Sport and this is Eco, and that is, I think, should be better lah. It should be better laid out, at least bigger and such. So when you're driving, at least you can look at them better. Right now, it's just too small. But this is just your drive modes. But if you want to adjust the way your steering feels, you have to press on the menu, go into vehicle settings, and notice that there is a sort of a lag every time you touch the menu. So there's a bit of a lag. So these are your drive modes, your power steering. Comfort is just way too light, and Sport can be a little bit too heavy. So a comfort normal Sport would be nice, such as driving mode Sports and driving mode Eco. Eco, the car feels too lazy, and Sports just a little bit too feisty. So even though there's a slight lag between the point where you put your foot down and when the power surges, so I think that the tuning of the engine as well as the accelerator needs to be a little bit better. Also, perhaps introduce a normal mode over there, so you get Sport, Normal and Eco. Power steering mode can be Comfort, Normal and Sport, and have this all in a dedicated button somewhere over here, because flipping through multiple layers of menu just to adjust your drive modes and your power steering mode is honestly a little bit unacceptable, particularly when you're driving. Other than that, you can also adjust the design of your instrument cluster over here. So right now, if I were to go back to vehicle settings, and it's somewhere here. Or is it somewhere here? Anyway, so yeah, I finally found it. So you have two different instrument theme settings. So you have this, which is quite traditional. You have your round circular dials over there, and then you can have something more modern, such as this one. Notice the lag. I don't like the lag, so I like it to respond almost immediately. And this is a little bit more futuristic design. So notice I have to press the screen multiple times for it to load. So I think the response time can be a little bit better, perhaps a higher processing speed. Anyway, even when you have it in this circular dials over here, when you're accelerating, the way that these digital needles sort of move upwards as you're accelerating, you'll notice that there's a lag. Like, I'm a late 90s, early 2000s kid, and when you're playing Counter-Strike, for example, and your processor cannot keep up, so you notice a bit of a lag every time you move your mouse, and on the guy on the screen, the response time is a little bit slow. So you get the same thing over here. So every time you accelerate, the needle sort of just jerks, and I don't like that. Now, Jetour is a Cherry product. It's from the Cherry group of brands, right? And that's why you see a lot of buttons and such that have trickled down or are part of the entire Cherry parts bin. So for example, the start button over here, you'll find this in, let's say, a Tiggo Pro, or even a Moda and such. So you'll find the same start button. You'll find the same steering wheel controls as well, and a little bit of here and there. The seats as well, I think they are from the Cherry Omoda 5 or something like that. They look familiar. Another thing that I have a problem with the Jetour Dashing is some of its menu items on the instrument cluster over here, like this. Like, why would I want accident details? And that just freaks me out. Shouldn't that be under some maintenance stuff and such? Accident details over here. Or perhaps, to be positive about this, maybe if you're buying this on the second-hand market, then perhaps having accident details is not such a bad thing. But besides this, I really don't like how this recover is in small letters, and then everything else is in capital, and then you get capital, 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 and then you get a small r for recover. So this just shows me that the engineers at Jetour are probably not very familiar with English and such. So are they truly ready to be a global brand? Because if you can't get simple stuff like the language in your menu right, then I have a lot of questions for you. So this is what I like about the Jetour Dashing. It's incredibly spacious and it's comfortable as well. I'm a guy that is not exactly on the shorter end of the spectrum, height spectrum, and I got a lot of leg room, a lot of knee space, a lot of headroom. And one thing that I like about this is that the shoulder line of the car is actually higher over here. It's like right up to the edge of my face. And that just makes me feel like I'm sitting quite deep inside the car. It makes me feel very safe, like I'm sitting in something that cannot be destroyed. And I like this. And even though it sits so high up, the window is actually quite large. And this lets in a lot of light, so you don't feel claustrophobic. I am a big fan of the design of the Jetour Dashing. I think it's very clever design. Now on top of that, of course, you have your tweeter over here, your window controls, but there is also a button, one more button right underneath the window switch, which if you press, you get access to a voice command. Open all windows. This button gives me access to voice command. Close all windows. Oh, if my son finds out about this though, it's going to be ejecto cito, cuz. Anyway, nice place to be. spacious, comfortable, and I can imagine spending quite a lot of time at the back over here. Anyway, if you are concerned about being connected, you also get a Type A and Type C USB port, as well as twin air conditioning vents. What else could you need? So, of course, the Jetour Dashing is not exactly a perfect package. It has its niggles, but at this price point, just under 120,000 ringgit, it's difficult to fault it, isn't it? It's just such a good deal. And there's one thing that it does really, perhaps two things that it does really, really well, and that is space and comfort. So if you want a car that is spacious for 5 people, your luggage, easy to drive on a day-to-day basis, if you can look past the niggles of this car, then I think the Jetour Dashing is a no-brainer. But how does it feel like at higher speed on the highway? So if I flex my right foot, I'm piling on some speed, and as soon as I get past 120 kilometers per hour, I start hearing some wind noise coming off this A-pillar over here. Perhaps this has got something to do with the design of the car, because as I was saying earlier, it has a very dramatically upslope A-pillar. So perhaps this is what's making introducing a lot of noise back into the cabin of the Jetour Dashing, and becomes really audible and really annoying the higher up or the faster you go. So in that sense, that is probably just my only complaint as far as refinement goes. But if you're going to be driving below 120, below 110, I think you're in for a pleasant surprise. The Jetour Dashing is pleasantly capable. And I think for 120,000 ringgit, which, by the way guys, is cheaper than the flagship Proton X70. Wow, how did you guys do that? You know, the Jetour Dashing is cheaper than the flagship SUV of our national car maker. Now that is saying something. So, and they're going to have local CKD operations and such in Johor, if I'm not mistaken. And ultimately, there are going to be more Jetours introduced into the market. There are going to be more models introduced, and things are just looking up for Jetour. Of course, there are things that I don't like lah, such as the driving feel, the software. There are things that obviously can be better. But at this price point, it's difficult to fault it. So I always like to end my videos by asking you whether, or by suggesting to you if this is worth the asking price. And guys, at 120,000 ringgit, if you want something big, comfortable, refined, spacious, then the Jetour Dashing is a no-brainer. Let me know if you'll spend 120,000 ringgit on the Jetour Dashing in the comment section below. If you would, let me know. If you wouldn't, also let me know what would you spend the 120,000 ringgit on. Let me know in the comment section below guys. As usual, do consider subscribing, and thank you for watching.